Good morning, good evening, and I hope everyone is doing well today. Today we're going to be talking about the hunter tree, the base tree specifically, through the point of view of a survival hunter. For the most part, I play survival. I don't really mess around with BM or marksman, although some of the issues that we're going to be talking about will definitely be affecting marksman and BM, as the quality of the tree, as it gets better, is only going to be better for all three specs. If you are unfamiliar with the talents in the neutral tree, you'd probably want to go over them yourself, as we're not going to really hang on each individual talent and what each individual node pick does. We're going to be more focusing on the structure of the tree, its placement, and my views on the ideas that have gone into creating it, and obviously the ideas that I think are wrong. For the most part, we're going to start we'll go section by section, and we'll just point out some noticeable things that I deem to be probably less than ideal for a tree. If you are unfamiliar with the state of the hunter tree, it's considered on the low end of power, mainly because as we've been iterating, it's been getting better and better, but things like personal defenses weren't in this tree until recently, and a big crux of the discussion is the entirety of the power in the neutral tree is below this 20 line down here. What this is leading to now is, as you approach 20, it was rather uneventful, and you're going to be picking up just utility and random buttons. Obviously now with the defensive package in and the opening up, it's becoming a little bit more enticing, but we still have the problem of you kind of work your way to 20, but then once you are at 20, you have 10 points, and you have to get the best DPS, because all the DPS is under this 20 line, besides improved kill shot damage. So that's a big issue, and that's going to be something we're going to be tackling later on. But just have that note in the side of your head, sub 20 is where all my damage is. Everything up to 20 is kind of pick your own adventure, and then you're locked in once you hit that 20 line. So now let's just kind of look at this from a survival point of view. As a survival player, let's look at this sub 20 section where all the power is. Starting on the far left, we have pet damage and kill command damage. Already not a super big fan. Like, it is just flat damage, especially the kill command damage. It's 10% kill command damage. We get kill command all the way up here. There's probably not a build out there that doesn't get kill command and then also get improved kill command, which is 2 points, which just makes you ask, why is this 10% just not baked into kill command? And we just have another unique passive here. Same with all flat damage. That's a big crux of mainly the survival tree, but you can still see it here in the bottom left-hand corner. We go down and we have Killer Instinct, which is kill command that has an execute feature to it. Not bad. And then Alpha Predator. For those unfamiliar with survival, Alpha Predator is as close to a mandatory talent as talent gets within the survival tree. It prevents the wasting of procs when kill command resets itself, and not to mention it's just 30% increased kill command damage, which is our main builder. So it's like, okay, that's one of our talents that was taken away from survival and put in the neutral tree. Okay, whatever. We then have NTA. For those who don't know what NTA is, it's a legendary effect in Shadowlands. It involves you throwing traps down to get focus generation. This was, I think, primarily, if only used by survival players using the Mongoose Bite build. This build fell off in Sanctum of Domination, mainly because, and it's the biggest joke, some bosses couldn't be affected by the traps, specifically freezing. Looking at you out of jailer. So this is now here, and now only procs off your freezing trap. So maybe they want to orient this as a PvP ability, which is like, okay, fine. But I don't think any spec, whether it be BM, MM, or survival, wants this to be their rotation and their interactions while PvEing. Not to mention, is that Steel Trap? Another one of our talents, taken straight out of survival, and now placed into the bottom of the tree. And why this is important, and we're going to keep headhunting all these survival-only abilities, is when you go to the survival tree, there is a abundant of flat percentage damage increases throughout the tree, and it makes me wonder, were these spots where these abilities were supposed to be? Or what's the deal with all these just flat percentages? So moving on, flat crit, not bad. Honestly, is if you have leftover points, you get to throw it into crit. As much as I harp on straight percentages, it is enjoyable to a degree to have the bucket to throw the extra points into. We have Death Chakram versus Stampede. Everything I have seen, for the most part, lends me to believe that Death Chakram will probably be the pick at all times without some massive tuning going into Stampede. Barrage and Explosive Shot. I haven't played with either of these two particularly at all, but just from looking at them, they look like they're 20 to 30 second cooldowns, focus costs, AoE buttons. One looks uncapped, the other looks capped to 5. So kind of the same double AoE button. Master Marksman, this has been fixed on a Blue Pro to now work with melee abilities, so it's just a flat, if your abilities crit, bleed, they're trying to build crit synergy throughout hunters, so okay. We're going to ignore Sentinels and Sentinel Isles. This is already under consideration for rework, so we're just going to ignore it for the time being. And then we move to the choice node after Serpent Sting. Latent Poison Injectors, a Legendary in Shadowlands, and Azurite trait in BFA. A survival-only ability now moved into the neutral tree. And then Hydra's Bite, again, a survival-only ability now in the neutral tree. And it just feels like half this tree was just ripped straight out of survival. And then the funniest part is as a survival player, you're like, okay, I want to go get Serpent Sting because it's one of my core abilities. And I want to get Alpha Predator because I need it for generation. And they are located on the opposite side of the tree. And this was brought up on the forums. And the response basically was they want all the classes to have access to Serpent Sting. And I agree with that, that seems fine. But, however, this is a core ability of survival, and it is a trouble to get to. So their response was, okay, we will change the way Viper's Venom works. So Viper's Venom, like Trickery for Marksman, now just causes our main spender in Raptor Strike or Mongoose Bite to just blatantly put up the ability. This goes from 15 to 30. I think mathematically you'll probably not need to go to 30 ever, unless you are just very anal about 100% uptime. But it also blocks our way to Wildfire Infusion. So it just seems like we've made these weird concessions in the survival tree in order to allow Serpent Sting in the bottom right. And it seems really obvious that we could just drag Serpent Sting up to where Concussive Shot was, and kind of build it so instead of being so bottom heavy, that we could put all our power into the beginning of the tree, push all this downwards, so that our beginning points, our first 8 points, we pick up all the power we need or all the power available in the tree, and as we go through, we're just picking the utility and the defensives we want for whatever content we're doing. Half the trees go with this philosophy, especially Shaman, which is arguably the best tree made by the same developer. And it just seems like a no-brainer to like copy what they're doing and just have a more accessible and fun tree with less worry about, well, it just turns into a math equation at the bottom. And so we have a schema here that I designed, which by no means is perfect, but will hopefully do its job to be a little bit more available in its power and have more fun in it past the opening section of the talent points. Rounds out most of my opinions on the final section, and in reverse order we're going to go back down to 8 to 20. Some notable nodes of conflict or annoyance is the dodge chance node for all those hunters taking direct hits. Like PvP, yeah, sure, but this used to be an avoidance node, which I think would be arguably better in most, if not all, scenarios for any hunter player. And for some reason, that change happened. Positives, we have the wall versus duration and cooldown choice node for Survival of the Fittest. Enjoyable. Camo, enjoyable. Born to be Wild, good talent. Improved traps, reducing the cooldown of traps and freezing trap. Tar trap and freezing trap. A 2-point node, 2.5 seconds each, which is kind of annoying in a tree that already has an abundance of 2-point nodes. And even stranger is that this talent is a cross from Tar Trap on the opposite side. Rejuvenating the Wind, Conduit and Shadowlands. Yep, good. Trank Shot, yep, everybody wants Trank Shot. Improved Trank Shot, cool, yeah, just using your ability gets you focus. Yeah, I think Reversal of Fortune, the Shadowlands Conduit for interrupting, would also be a good consideration for this tree. Scare Beast used to be in the way, but now it's off to the side at least and you have access to it. Another talent like Misdirection, which I think should just be baseline. I don't think it's going to feel particularly good at any point speccing into these. And the last kind of note of annoyance, Binding Shackle. Targets rooted by Binding Shot or stunned by Intimidation deal 10% damage to you for 8 seconds. PvP talent, maybe? I think for the most part, though, I think very quickly adding something along the lines of or to your pet would make this more enjoyable for open world players. Because right now, if you use this in any PvE scenario, for the most part, your pet is going to be tanking. Maybe the Marks players playing Lone Wolves, but even then, this seems really narrow, and thankfully it's only 1 point, but probably a point that won't be used for most, if not all, scenarios. Last, but certainly not least, is the opening section. Obviously, as Survival, you're going to be starting with Kill Command as well as BM, and Marksmanship will start with Kill Shot. So, as we discussed, all the power is below the 20 line, except for Kill Shot and Improved Kill Shot. These are going to most likely be snap, always take these points. You probably don't want a scenario without them ever. So, awesome. Post Haste, very strong movement ability, clearing your roots. Always going to be putting 2 points in there. It's a little unfortunate, it's a 2-pointer, but that's what it is. Natural Mender, reducing the cooldown of your Exhilaration. Yep, strong effect. Our Interrupt, this turns into Counter Shot for our ranged counterparts. And Survival of the Fittest is our new defensive, so we'll probably always be taking some assortment of these 3 talents. Most likely your Kick, as it's a very direct route to getting your defensive as well as opening up the tree. Natural Mender is also another option, however it doesn't let us get to Tar Trap. The reason I value Tar Trap is just to get onto this side of the tree. If you don't take Tar Trap, you can't come down through Survival of the Fittest and get Intimidation. And preferably, if we're going down to Alpha Predator, which you should be 100% of the time going down to Alpha Predator, it's probably more ideal to not go through Binding Shackles. So we're always going to throw a point into Tar Trap. We have 1 point, so we can throw that around. Concussive Shot, not a very ideal talent. I'd prefer this wasn't here, and this was a baseline talent, and was the counterpart to Wing Clip, as Muzzle is the counterpart to Counter Shot. This just seems really out of place when you compare it to Kill Shot and Kill Command. Trailblazer, a 2-point talent. I think this was rarely taken on live for as long as it's been around. And I imagine Trailblazer and the improved Men Pet talent will most likely be avoided like the plague for the entirety of this expansion. And I can't see myself ever going over and taking these 2 talents when I could just root through Tar Trap to get Trank Shot. These seem out of place, underpowered, and will never be chosen. So for our final point, we can either go into Misdirect, which is a valid option. 1 point in Natural Mender. We'll say we're doing a raid and we don't need Misdirect, so we'll get the slight defensive buff. And that's roughly what the opening would look like. And with all this being said, we're going to look at a custom-made tree here. And this tree is not designed to be a perfect reflection of what optimal balance would look like. The main point is to look at all these concepts that we've been talking about and these talents that are out of place and this line of power that is just glaring at you the entire time, and take inspiration from Shaman and just try to make the power as obtainable as quickly as possible with having a tree that has a low node count. And what we find with this low node count tree is the cost is relatively similar to these high node trees, which begs the question, why am I paying more for less? So the design idea was, if we're going to have a low node count tree, we should get a higher percentage of our tree. So this is a talent tree of my own design, and like we said earlier, the important thing to notice is let's keep an eye on structures, what points lead to one another, and the general idea of the tree. So when I was constructing this tree, it was a very big plan of mine to move Serpent Sting, or as you can see I wrote wrong here, Sepent Sting. We're just going to pretend it says Serpent Sting. Up to the top of the tree. And when I did that, I had Kill Command, Serpent Sting, and Kill Shot. And as a survival player, I was like, okay, well, which node do I start with? They're both core functions to my subspec. And upon doing that, I thought, hey, I should start with both. Like, that makes sense, and screw the BM and the MM Hunter. But the more you think about it, it's kind of a cool idea that each subclass starts with two. So in this world where I am developing the Hunter tree, Survival would start with Kill Command and Serpent Sting. BM would start with Kill Command and Kill Shot, and Marksman would start with Kill Shot and Serpent Sting. And I just find that to be honestly a pleasing thought, and I'm pretty happy with just that concept alone right off the rip. So that's where we start. We're going to put 1 point in Kill Shot, because again, it's an important ability for Survival. And now let's take a look at our second row. Our second row contains the improved Kill Shot node that currently exists, Post Haste that currently exists. Reduced it to 1 node, though, because we like to make our players happy. The decision node between Leighton and Hydra remains. I think this is a good decision node between Leighton, which is traditionally a single target node, and Hydra's Bite, which is traditionally a sustained AoE node. Although it hasn't been powerful in the past, potentially with some tuning, this could be a very interesting node, and if maybe you're doing mass AoE, you take neither. Tactical Retreat. This is a Shadowlands conduit. Basically, it just makes your disengage slow people when you disengage. So this is kind of the counterpart to making your disengage move you faster. And then we have Alpha Predator. Alpha Predator is the end-all be-all Kill Command talent. So let's get it right out of the way and let's get it into the pockets of the BM and Survival Hunters that demand it. So this first little part, we're going to pick all the throughput just to kind of hit home the point. So throughput, throughput, throughput. All right, moving down to the next line. We have the decision node. This used to be Stampede versus Death Chakram. I decided to make it an AoE decision node, with hopefully the main decision being Stampede should do a large amount of damage and be on a 2-minute cooldown, versus Barrage or Explosive Shot. I have Barrage here in this scenario. Explosive Shot's not on my tree just because it wasn't in my design philosophy of where I wanted it. But there is an argument that Barrage could easily be Explosive Shot, or vice versa. And the idea would be big cooldown that hits everything really hard, or lower cooldown, sustained AoE from Barrage and Explosive Expert. So if you have one moment, possibly a raid, where it is more valuable to have the single target damage from Stampede than the constant AoE from Barrage or Explosive Shot, then you would take Stampede. And if you're in, say, a Mythic Plus, or a fight like Sun King, where you're just, or Stone Legion Generals, where you're just swamped with ads constantly, maybe there's more value in Barrage or Explosive Shot. So we're going to take this talent on the sole reason that it does damage. Muzzle, your kick. And then here's my second choice node. It has been asked for a bunch to get Flayer's Marks back. They keep giving us different talents in every spec tree that give us some form of interaction with Kill Shot. And the general consensus I can see is Flayer's Mark is better, and we would just prefer Flayer's Mark. And the idea of the Flayer's Mark playstyle of Kill Shot procs versus the Death Chakram damage window / cleave with all the damage boosts would be the contestation of this node. Depending on tuning, I don't know how this would kick out, but the hope would be that this node would be just a personal decision on, hey, do you want killshot procs or do you want increased damage windows? So we're going to click this node too because it has damage on it. And at this point, we have all the damage in the tree. We have Tar Trap and Survival of the Fittest, Post Haste, Tactical Retreat, and our kick. We need 2 more points to move on. And while moving on, there's no more throughput, other than maybe you considered an improved muzzle. This is just the Reversal of Fortune node currently in Shadowlands. That gives you focus for kicking. And this is the closest thing to a damage node you'll find in the rest of the tree. And at this point, backtracking doesn't feel terrible. Because if you get down into 20, you can come back, you can take whatever you want, and you already have all the damage you would need in your tree. So let's just keep that in mind, that damage is done. Survival of the Fittest, it is our defensive cooldown. We'll probably take this in 99.9999% of the scenarios, probably 100. Tar Trap, again, I like Tar Trap as just a mechanic, as an ability, and its current positioning opens up our way into the left side of the tree again, even in this version, so boom, we're going to take it. We're at 8 points now. Trank Shot remains the same. We've removed the improved trap nodes from over here into the rejuvenating wind slot. Instead of being a 2-point talent, we've reduced it to a 1-point talent because 1 point for 2.5 seconds off Frost and Freezing Trap is pretty lame. So it's now just a 5. As we said, the Reversal of Fortune improved kick. The decision node remains the exact same for our defensive and camo. So 100% of the time, we'll be taking that. Could also take Trank to open up this side, but we'll just take all the defenses right now. So Born to be Wild remains the same. We move Scare Beast over here and Menpet off to the side. We kind of have a de-cursing, de-magic affecting tripod right here. There's no real reason or rhyme to this, but this could be baseline easily. This could be baseline easily. This is just more utility in the tree, out of your way. If you want it, take it. If not, perfect. Rejuvenating Wind, 2 points in it. This should probably see a numbers tune-up, but again, we're just keeping it the way it is. It's a talent that every spec would value evenly. So there's that. At this point, you would probably take your CC, as most hunters would, so Intimidation, and I think this is going to give a Scatter Shot. It did. I would take Binding Shot, but that's a personal decision. So at this point, we are at 15. We can move over into Craven Stratagem. This talent could be OP. Completely admittedly, this legendary effect is pretty godly in PvP. And the idea of it is when you feign, you shrug off all the negative effects, and you have a reduced cooldown on feign. I tuned the cooldown down a little bit to avoid a 15 seconds nothing can hurt me button. But it is an enjoyable button to press, and it feels really good to have in PvP. And if this isn't moved into a PvP talent, I think it could easily find its way into the neutral tree here. Maybe we reduce the effectiveness to only work on bleeds or poisons or only curses. Maybe no magical effects. This is a balancing knob. It'd be interesting to see where this lands up, but we'll just say we're going to take Trank because we like having abilities, and we're going to take 2 points in Craven because now we have all possible defensives from this area. We have Camo left, Scare Beast for certain dungeons, lower cooldowns if we like traps, and Improved Menpet if maybe there's some single player content that demands it. We still have the 2 disengage nodes free up here, as well as kick and improve kick. I like playing with kick, so I'm going to take that. I like playing with post haste, so we'll take that. Noticeably in my design, the second point of Craven reduces just the cooldown only, so I'll actually drop a point from there, and I'll get focused on my kick because I like that. Now we hit the 20 section. This is the infamous Eye of Terror, where at this point your 10 points are super strict, and I tried to open up and make as many buckets as I thought was possible in this section, as well as putting points that below this point, generally the idea is if you don't have it, it doesn't feel bad not to have it. If you rather turn around, maybe get that second point in Craving, get some traps, you like playing with camo, you're a hunter, you come back and get it, Scare beasts because maybe the dungeon demands it. The idea is you can turn back at this point and not feel terrible. You'll also notice we're getting a higher percentage of all the points with only having 1 in the first section not available, and 4, arguably 4.5, not available in the section. So let's look at our buckets. We have the movement speed node that was traditionally up higher, as well as the dodge node that has been returned to its avoidance node status. And my idea for the avoidance node and the movement speed node is that if these effects don't entice you and nothing previously entices you, then hey, they're there, throw the point in them, don't worry about it. Natural Mender. This could easily be Rejuvenating Wind and vice versa. The point of this position on the tree, as everything kind of flows into it and flows out of it, is that this is going to lead right into Sentinel's Howl or whatever a raid utility will become. The idea is all Hunter specs should get it. So, to get it, I mean, you can make the argument to move it down, but I also just kind of needed to put Natural Mender somewhere in the tree. And this talent does not feel terrible for any spec to get. Acceleration comes off cooldown faster. Awesome. Who's mad about that? So, let's move on. Down here is a kind of a trifecta of what I'm calling just the trap section. Traps are a big part of our kit. We could have more talents that deal with the traps. So, we have the Binding Shackle returning. In this iteration, I just made traps apply the DR. This would be potentially when you come out of the freezing trap, your first slow application on your tar trap, or maybe getting hit by explosive traps. This could also include intimidation, binding shot, scatter shot. But importantly, it also deals with your pet. Because in my views, this is either going to be a really weak PvP talent, in theory, is how I want it designed, or I want it to be something to help the single player open world, the type of players who would get men pet, I want them to also get Binding Shackle. And that's the idea for this talent. I'm going to say this wrong. Ambuscade. This is currently a Shadowlands Conduit, and simply triggering a trap causes your disengage to reduce the cooldown. Master Traps. I created this talent, although I think it's inspired from Torghast powers, if I'm remembering right, because I know the Tar Trap Radius for sure is a Torghast talent. But basically the idea is when someone comes out of the freezing trap, they would have a 70 or 90% slow, depending on how many points you have in, and it would rapidly decay. This is actually off the Death and Decay talent of the exact same effect. When you drop Death and Decay, everyone's slowed by 90, and they rapidly gain their movement speed back. And basically this is an idea of just PvP talent, trap fantasy, all right here. We're then going to swing over. This is the movement speed section for those guys who want to be zoomies. We have Cheetah's Vigor. This is a current Shadowlands Conduit. It makes aspects of the Cheetah's secondary effect last longer and reduces cooldown by a slight amount. Trailblazer. This is a talent I think I've already said I don't personally enjoy. However, open world, this could probably be very enjoyable to certain players. And you're going to have the option for it here, and it's going to be tucked away. It's going to be out of the early portion of the tree, so if you are someone who enjoys going fast, your tree could look something like that. And the idea is that if we do this, and we take everything in this little section, whether it be traps or movement speed, we have 2 points left over for raid utility. And depending on where this kicks out, because for all we know, Sentinel's Hour could be a complete dud, and maybe you don't want it, you could put it in the bucket of avoidance, or you could put it in the buckets that we missed. And like I said, the point of this is, let's just say none of this entices you. If you don't like any of this, you're at 24 points, up to 26, because we're just going to fill flat nodes. You now have 4 points remaining to place however you want. You can go back and get all these. There's probably an argument that you want more nodes. This tree is definitely node light. There's definitely room for more. But I think this is a good starting point and a good concept to say, once we reach the end, it's okay to turn back. It's okay that our throughput isn't here because we've already got it all, and now we can just focus on cool abilities you want. I like to go fast. I want to be stealthed. Traps are cool. Simple enough. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it.